Welcome to the Fiscal Fortress. Michelle.meiming, a distinguished lawyer, and Eric.chung, a veteran hedge fund manager, deliver insightful commentary on finance and the law and actionable advice. The Fiscal Fortress, where wealth meets wisdom.
Hey, Michelle, it's really great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing too, Eric?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you can tell from my attire, man, it's gotten chillier in Piedmont. It was actually super warm, and then the last couple of weeks it got really, really cold. Maybe it has something to do with the election.
I agree. It seems like it's just drastic weather changes. I feel like it wasn't long since it was super hot, and then suddenly it's we're bracing. For cold weather. So,
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, so speaking of things that might have chilled the weather, such as Trump's election, I was thinking maybe I could talk about what impact Trump will have on the on stocks and the markets, because I think that's actually it could have some dramatic impacts over the coming months and years. How about you?
I am going to talk about the range of clients I see, from the ones who come to me when it's a little bit too late and the ones who come to me on a regular basis and are running up a ton of amendments on their trust, and why that can actually be not a great idea, even from a lawyer's perspective.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great topic. I know, both as a former lawyer and also as a consumer of legal services. I used to be a general counsel of a company that, like being a good client and acting in a certain way can actually drastically reduce your legal fees. So I think that's a great topic.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat about, what I would think are good ways to reduce a legal bill. So usually clients come to me, nobody really likes to pay on an hourly basis. So I do try to estimate how many hours the work will take and then offer them a flat fee. But there's always something in the agreement that says, look, if we exceed a certain amount of expected hours, it will have to, the charges will have to change to an hourly basis. And so, in terms of correspondence, emails, phone calls, Zoom meetings, all of that can easily add up if we're not being time efficient with the information. So for instance, in an estate plan, I send my clients an intake form. And it's important for that intake form to be as complete as possible, because if there's anything that is incomplete, then we have to go back and forth to try to get the information. And then also, if there's going to be changes, it's important that that be documented. A lot of times when I meet with the clients after they filled out the form, then they realize, okay, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. So then we go backwards instead of forwards. So communication is a huge way to reduce a legal bill. You just have to tell the lawyer what is important to you. The lawyer will propose certain options, and then from there we go forward, as opposed to revising those goals. And then in terms of reducing legal costs, some people are adverse to a legal fee, and so they don't come to me until the very last minute. And by then, sadly, it is actually too late for me to step in, because they're not at a point where they can actually understand what it is that they'd be signing. And so the family needs those documents, but the person who needs to sign is not in a position to be at a level of health that they can understand who I am and what they are signing and what they wish to do.
I wonder, could people use AI initially just to focus their thinking before they talk to a lawyer? Is that a good idea? Because it sounds like if you're not really clear about what you want and what's important to you, then you're going to pay time to basically chat with your lawyer to figure that out. Do you think that that's a worthwhile thing to do?
It'll be interesting to see whether the AI can sort of trigger certain thoughts that you want to tell the lawyer about. But that's all part of also whether when you speak to an experienced lawyer, when you fill out the intake, there will be issues that I can spot based on the answers. But it never hurts to speak to an AI and just find out if I want to do, for instance, if I want to avoid or minimize taxes, can a trust accomplish that, and see what the AI says. But those are the things that I would ask the client. Do they want to avoid probate? Do they want to reduce taxes? Do they want to accomplish asset protection, or all of the above?
Yeah.
Those are the things that we want to narrow down.
You want to pay your lawyer to give you the legal advice, but if some other people are like me, like I'm sometimes disorganized, and my thoughts are disorganized. And if you use OpenAI's ChatGPT, they have a really nice voice interface where you could basically like talk to it. It'll have a conversation with you, and you can just say, and this would be the prompt: "Hey, ChatGPT, I'm going to be talking to my lawyer Michelle, and I want to write down my thoughts and send her something. Help me, and let's just have a conversation. And this is what I'm thinking." And basically, you could just blab and just in a very contemporaneous and even disorganized way talk into ChatGPT, and then on the back end it'll actually write like a one-pager that you could revise and then send to your lawyer. So I don't know if that'll work, but that's just an idea on using modern technology to maybe organize your thoughts and perhaps save some time with your lawyer.
I think that sounds like a great idea. To have sort of the important things that a client cares about, and then presenting it to the professional, the lawyer, when they meet. It is much more efficient to say, look, these are things that I've been thinking about, because a lot of times people, when they want to do their estate plan, they'll just call me and say, I want to meet you tomorrow. But even, first of all, I may not be available when they need me tomorrow. But secondly, it's just they have to think about really some tough questions before they meet me. Otherwise, those hours will add up.
I remember this when I was in-house as a lawyer. Like, if you're, this is in the vein of not being really clear on what you want. Like, if you're not clear what you want and you're always changing your mind, or, changing documents or going back and forth, changing direction, like that could be, I remember that really ran up the legal bill by a lot. Is that something you've experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's very important to, especially for estate planning, to speak with your spouse, be on the same page, and then talk to the lawyer, as opposed to thinking we're all going to sit down and then discuss all the issues and problems from the marriage or previous marriages. It is a lot better to just actually be very clear about what it is that you need and how you plan on gifting the money after one spouse passes, and then after two people pass away, where the money goes, and to think through who should manage the money, all that. And that's what the intake form does, is to try to bring those questions to the forefront.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm thinking also, like, even after the intake form, like once you talk to a lawyer and they start drafting documents, like if you weren't really clear on the front end and you change it and like you have to enter into an amendment or a change, I think a lot of people think like, oh, well, that's no big deal. It's probably just a one-page document. But I think what people don't appreciate is that for the lawyer, like, sure, it's not probably as much work as recreating, as drafting the document originally, but they've still got to go back and make sure everything hangs together, and they've got to refresh their recollection on what the original documents said. So that's probably surprising for people, like how amendments could really jack up the costs of legal bills.
Totally. And because the lawyer has hopefully more than one client on their mind, then the professional is dealing with multiple clients. And so in order to go back to the file, we have to wrap our head around all the details. And so that does inevitably cause a lot of time, and it could rack up the cost by actually revising something that was drafted in a way based on the intake form answers, but then suddenly something changes, because it's just, even though that family situation is crystal clear to the client, for the professional, they're dealing with many clients at the same time. So we can't just remember right off the top of my head, exactly the details of that file. And then there's on the other end of the spectrum where there are clients who want to keep meeting even after they have signed and the matter has been concluded. They'll want the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th Amendment. And even from a lawyer's perspective, it just isn't a good idea, because every time there's a change, it gives it an opportunity for somebody to attack whoever has been left out of that amendment, to say, why was I left out? Was there undue influence to make that change? So it's just not a good idea to have multiple changes. It makes sense to have changes after every 5 or so years, but it really isn't a good idea to have frequent and constant changes.
Yeah, and it'd be different if like there was a specific change, like a change in circumstance, like somebody passed away or you got divorced or something like that. But what you're saying reminds me of that saying, you should, measure 3 times, cut once. Like it's much better if you're very thoughtful ahead of time and you put in the work before you get the lawyer to draft stuff.
Yep. Otherwise, it just becomes an opportunity for litigation to come up. But anyhow, Eric, do you want to switch gears and talk about the Trump trade and what that means?
Yeah. So when we talk about the Trump trade, obviously, it's been, a while now since Trump was elected, but things are shaking out, and he's obviously, making progress on some of his election promises and putting in place department heads. And I think it's pretty clear that certain industries and companies will benefit and others will be hurt. And I'd like to start with crypto. So crypto is one of these kind of controversial topics. And he has, along with a senator in Wyoming, announced that he would institute, and it's yet to be seen whether he'll follow through with this, but he's going to set up a strategic reserve of Bitcoin, 1 million Bitcoin, that is similar to like the oil reserve, the strategic oil reserve that the United States has. And he's also, during his campaign, he said he would fire the chairman of the SEC. Gary Gensler, the current chair, has announced that he'll resign. So it looks like Trump's going to make good on that. And he used to be a crypto skeptic, and now he's basically a crypto bro. He is, his sons are invested in crypto. He's surrounding himself with pro crypto people like Elon Musk and JD Vance. And so I think that it's fair to say that has explained why Bitcoin has gone up since his election and may continue to go up. And full disclosure, my fund, I'm talking my book a little bit because the day after Trump got elected, I did put in a chunk of our fund's assets in Bitcoin for the reasons I just explained.
I find the whole rise in cryptocurrency and the values of Bitcoin going up to be concerning, though, because it's one thing for Trump and for yourself and other very experienced people who are sophisticated to go into this trade, but it's another thing for people who are just hearing about crypto being a good investment and just jumping into any opportunity that's presented about crypto. And so with the aging population, there's just, people are fear of missing out, and then there's a ton of crypto crime that I have heard about. And so it worries me to think that, while there can be some merit to that as an option to invest, people who aren't going to be as well advised are going to make some dangerous moves.
Yeah, it's true. Crypto is not like stocks or real estate where there are fundamentals, meaning, these are income producing properties and like the accounting is very well understood. Crypto, the reality is that it has a lot more to do with commodities. It's similar to commodities, so it's very volatile, but also to what you're talking about is it has attracted a lot of criminals, and criminal behavior was rampant and probably still is rampant because historically it's been very lightly regulated. You should talk to somebody who is an expert in this. You talk to your financial advisor, and not all financial advisors actually know that much about crypto. Obviously, if anybody wants more information, you can call me. I'm happy to chat with them. But I would suggest that if you're going to buy and sell crypto, do it on a reputable exchange. I used to work at Coinbase, so I'm talking about my old company. Like, that's the number one company in the United States, and it is, I can vouch for it. It's a legitimate company. Secondly, I would only invest in digital assets that you understand and you've done research on. Bitcoin is the oldest and the most well understood. I think that's it's going to be volatile, and there's no guarantee that'll go up. But at least I can say definitively that that's not a fraud. I could not be super confident about some of these other coins that are coming out, and a lot of these very more speculative coins very, very much could be fraudulent. You could be taken advantage of, especially if you're doing self-custody, like you're not using a company to hold your crypto. Because crypto, if it's stolen from you, if you get hacked, it's gone. It's gone forever, likely. So it's a lot like bearer bonds, and you have to be very, very cognizant of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am aware that it's not just the coins that can be highly volatile and people could lose all their money on, but the criminals are creating very sophisticated platforms that look extremely real, and then direct the person who is the victim onto these platforms, and so that money is completely in a different place that there's no control over. So it's highly just dangerous to even touch. So when I hear that word, it makes me very nervous, because there's lots of ways to twist that into a fraud.
It's true, and even at Coinbase, I know a friend. He had a Coinbase account, and his Coinbase account got drained. And the reason is that it's not that his Coinbase account got hacked. He got hacked. It's called a phishing attack. So somehow they were able to, how there's like two-factor authentication where it sends you verification on the phone, and there's basically social engineering attacks where they can get people to reveal information, a person to reveal information so that they can access your Coinbase account or other crypto account or bank account. So this type of fraud is rampant. So it is dangerous. I mean, that's not specific to crypto, but there are a lot of people who are focused on crypto because, again, if they steal those tokens, it can't be traced, right? It's different if they hack into your bank account. JP Morgan will take care of that, right? So anyway, I think your point's well taken. You should really be careful because there are safety and there are safety issues.
That's right. To me, if somebody were to come to me and say they want to invest in crypto, I would say go through a financial institution that's huge and has some kind of cryptocurrency fund. Do not go into individual coins or trust somebody who is just telling you that they're an expert. It's just so easy for money to be completely lost in that space.
100%. So on that point, you can, like if you have a Fidelity account or any brokerage account, you can buy an ETF that tracks Bitcoin or now I think, soon Ethereum, but definitely Bitcoin. You could buy an ETF that tracks Bitcoin, and that's probably a safe way of doing this. Now you're going to pay, some small fees to the ETF, the fund that's administering it. But for the peace of mind, it's probably worth it. And it's a lot easier, right? You don't have to even go to Coinbase. You can just stick with Charles Schwab or Fidelity and buy an ETF. And frankly, that's what we did for the fund is we just, our custodian is Goldman, and we just bought one of these ETFs.
I think, for Trump to be a proponent of cryptocurrency is one thing, but he should also look out for all the people that could be harmed by it. And so in order to be responsible, he needs to put it out there that, look, let's not forget, while this can be a good way to invest, it's also, it's fraught with criminals. And so please do not just listen to that word and say yes.
the reality is that, Gary Gensler, the outgoing SEC chair, probably was saying the same thing, is that this is, this is an industry full of vipers and criminals and we have to regulate it. But I think they've lost that battle. I think it's buyer beware. You have to just, take care of yourself. I think that's the direction the government's going.
Then I think in that case, he really needs to work hard at educating the public. Because if he's not going to regulate it and he's just going to let people just figure it out and get burned, I think that is incredibly irresponsible. I just hate to see more people losing their life savings because they thought that this was something that Trump endorsed as safe.
Yeah. He's certainly not endorsing it as safe. I think there's a philosophical view, and, he's a capitalist and he's surrounding himself with people like Elon Musk who, are trying to deregulate things, right? So there's, and a lot of them are openly being pejorative about, they consider California a nanny state, right? Where the government's basically trying to protect people from themselves. And I don't agree with that. I mean, I'm a former lawyer. I understand, how, the people who are the most vulnerable and the people who have the least amount of information, they're often the ones who can afford to be a victim the least, right? So arguably they want and need the most protection. The reality right now is that that's not the direction the country's going. The country has voted for a guy who's, he's a convicted felon. That's just a fact. A guy who has said he's going to basically gut the government and drastically reduce headcount. We have to look to our own, do research, talk to experts. Don't assume, in my opinion, don't assume the government's going to protect you. That's not what they're going to do. And it's a changed world. Post 2024, you have to look out for yourself.
That is sadly true. I think that there's just got to be more people who are concerned to spread the word, saying, be very careful about what people are asking you to put your money in.
That's, the one bright spot is, it'll give people a reason to get more educated, to engage on stuff. And, at the end of the day, it'll create accountability, right? We have to be accountable for our own wealth, to be smart about stuff. And it will probably reduce government spending, which is probably in all of our interest. So that's the counter, those are the counter arguments.
I think people do have to stop being innocent because, things have swung so far to the extreme that you can't believe what you see on the news. You can't believe what you see on the internet. And now you can't believe what, people show you in terms of just investment opportunities, on platforms that have to be completely second guessed and questioned, So you have to, I think as a consumer now, you've got to question everything that you see.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And what'll happen is the companies that have really good brands and reputations will do well, because a lot of people, that's just too much work. So they'll just default to a big bank or a Coinbase or Fidelity because that's a trusted name. And maybe that's the way it should be.
I agree. It's so important to have an advisor, a human that you can actually see, not somebody just on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. If I may, a couple of other industries, just really quickly, winners and losers of the Trump trade. A few more winners would be the energy sector. He's appointed the CEO of a fracking company as the head of the EPA. This reminds me of his first term where he appointed an oil CEO. I think it was Chevron, the Chevron CEO as the head of the EPA. So they, if you're an energy investor or coal investor, you should be probably pretty happy. Prison companies are doing really well. A lot of companies that may benefit if there are forced deportations of immigrants. There are a couple of publicly held prison companies. Those are doing well. Tesla and Tesla specifically. So EVs, he's actually planning, or he's announced that he's going to reduce the subsidies to EVs. But Elon Musk is obviously very close to Trump now, and there are articles asking, is the vice president J.D. Vance or is it Elon Musk? But, a lot of people think that Elon has a lot to gain here because he'll probably be able to get Trump to perhaps, get through Congress legislation to legalize robo-taxis. And that would be a huge win for Tesla. And there are also some losers. So RFK has, taken a prominent position in Trump's administration, and he's been extremely critical of pharma. And RFK will now control the FDA. He'll be the overseer of that agency. He's also been super critical of food and snack companies and the ingredients in a lot of American foods. He thinks some ingredients are poisoning American children. Those companies, could get a lot of scrutiny or have to change their business practices. Also, any industries or companies that are reliant on immigrant labor, such as agriculture, could really be hurt as well. Like their costs could go up if people are forcibly deported. And then lastly, importers of goods from China. So Trump has said that he's going to, amp up tariffs to China. So if you're shopping or if a business is importing a lot of stuff like marketplaces like Wayfair, even Amazon, my fund invests in Five Below. Five Below is getting hit really hard. These companies are importing a lot of goods from China, and that's probably, these tariffs will be bad for these companies. But the last thing I'll say is that you really do, to your earlier point, have to talk to a human because it's nuanced. Like I think all these companies and industries will be helped and hurt, as I've said, but it's an open question whether it's already been priced in. A lot of these hedge funds who are focusing on this, bid up the stocks of a lot of these companies early. Also, a lot of these policies will be inflationary. Trump is, if he puts in tariffs, if he deports people, that's going to jack up the costs of goods. And if there's inflation, that means the Federal Reserve won't reduce interest rates, or they'll be less likely to reduce interest rates. So that's a countervailing factor and may cause stocks to go down. So as you can see, like it's kind of complicated, and you should talk to an expert about this before making any decisions.
I think it seems like more than ever, having a trusted advisor who is a human that you can actually see face to face becomes even more important because there's so much information out there. Yeah. Things are not necessarily regulated, and unless you can suddenly be an overnight expert, it is important. And even if you are an expert, it takes years of experience to know, for you and I to see what we see. And, while some people might be, afraid of seeing a lawyer for the legal consultation or the fee, the lawyer can actually help them draft a trust so that their children have more asset protection, so that it becomes harder for that child to be susceptible to somebody proposing a wild and crazy idea and just sign off on the money in the trust, and then the money disappears. There can be ways to structure the trust so that more than one signature is needed, so that any impulsivity is stopped.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think both in the legal world and increasingly in the financial world, like a lot of people were doing DIY, do it yourself, and just doing their own investing, doing their own legal stuff. But I think we're starting to see as the world is getting more complicated, there's more fraud, there's just more complications that you probably could, you're being kind of penny wise, pound foolish. If you just if everything's DIY, you should probably think about like, what are the consequences of messing this up, and then make your decisions accordingly.
I completely agree. Nothing could be more important than that message.
All right. Well, this is a great time to probably end today's episode. It was really great seeing you. We'll drop another episode in 2 weeks. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them on YouTube. We love suggestions for episodes. And as always, you could reach out by email or just call us if you would like any help. Thanks very much.
Yes, we would love to hear from you.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.